What is the solution to America's ongoing, never-ending, perpetual immigration crisis? Join Richard Ebeling and me in this week's Libertarian Angle as we examine that question. Hi, I'm Jacob Hornberger, president of the Future of Freedom Foundation. This is this week's issue of the Libertarian Angle, the show that brings you every week the principled case for libertarianism in the context of the burning issues of the day. And I'm joined, as I am every week, by my illustrious co-host, Richard Ebeling, who teaches economics at the Citadel. Richard, good to see you again.
Good to see you and to be with our viewers and listeners in this time of freedom and prosperity in America.
Richard, are you feeling okay?
Wait, I saw Biden give his little talk the other night on TV about the stimulus package. Isn't this the new free and prosperous America?
Oh, you mean that America's back?
Yeah.
That now we've got our freedom again. So does that mean that we're not going to make America great again?
No, because we're back. So what do you need to make it great again for?
I see. Well, okay, you got a good point. Well, except on immigration, Richard, because one thing is certain, Joe Biden hasn't resolved the immigration crisis. I mean, everybody's saying that the Republicans are going on the attack. Why haven't you done anything with the immigration crisis? I mean, this is like deja vu all over again, because we went through this with Trump. Republicans seem to forget that during the Trump era, America was getting invaded. Remember all that talk about the invaders are coming? My gosh, look at all those women and children. They're invading America. They're going to take us over. And now the refugees are over here crossing the border, and now the Republicans, well, no, it's Biden's at fault. Biden's at fault because he's attracting them with his plan to legalize immigrants here in the United States. I mean, this is just such a ludicrous parlor game here that these people play. You've got this ongoing perpetual immigration crisis. It's been going on since I was a kid. Every year, crisis. And whoever is not in power is attacking the party that's in power, saying, well, do something about the crisis. And then then they're kicked out and the other party gets into power. And so the party out of power, same thing. Look at the immigration crisis. And then you've got on the sidelines, the mainstream press saying, well, if only they would enact comprehensive immigration reform, that standard phrase. I mean, Richard, what is going on with these people? How come they don't see how ludicrous this all is? That when you've got a socialist system, and that's what this is central planning. You've got the central planners deciding how many immigrants, what their credentials are going to be, how many quotas for each country. You're going to have what Ludwig von Mises called planned chaos. I mean, what better term to describe what's been going on the border, not just in the short time that Biden's been in office, but throughout the last 40, 50 years, then planned chaos. That's what you have, along with a police state. I mean, you've got an immigration police state down there. I've had personal experience with this police state. I live down there. They've got domestic checkpoints on highways that make people stop and be subject to search who have never even left the United States. I mean, this is what they have in totalitarian countries, domestic highway checkpoints. And then you've got warrantless searches of farms and ranches, mostly on the border, but they can extend them out 100 miles, which encompasses about 2/3 of the population of the United States. You got boarding of Greyhound buses to check people's papers. They do that in communist countries, totalitarian countries. They have roving border patrol checkpoints where they just stop whoever they want. I mean, it's incredible. You've got a police state and a socialist system. Well, duh. And all you do is have this merry-go-round where the parties exchange power and then the other party goes on the attack. Why can't these people see that as long as you have socialism in terms of an immigration central planning system, you're going to have planned chaos. You're going to have a police state. Now, one of the most ludicrous attacks that the conservatives are now making is that Joe Biden believes in open borders. I mean, they're either obtuse or they're disingenuous or they just have no idea what open borders is. Open borders is the absence of an immigration control system. It isn't when a ruler is being more lax about enforcement of a government control system. I mean, Biden's already saying that he's publicly proud of the fact that he's expelling many of these refugees. He's returning them. Right now, he's working with Mexico to try to keep them from sending over, quote, sending over more refugees. This is exactly what Trump was doing. There's no difference. Now, okay, is there a difference on the Berlin Wall that Trump was building? Yes. Yeah, Biden has stopped that. Is there a difference on how he's going to treat immigrants that are here? Yes. But the basic system of an immigration control system, he accepts. It just his enforcement measures are different from those of the conservatives or the Republicans. Open borders is what we have here in the United States, between the states. That's what open borders means. No government controls whatsoever. So any tens of thousands of people can move from New York. Many of them might be burglars, robbers, rapists, thieves, people with COVID. They can move right into Texas by crossing the northern border or the eastern border. Or the western border. There's no government controls there. That's what open borders is. And so when Republicans say that Biden and the Democrats favor open borders, that's such nonsense. It's only we libertarians who favor open borders. And why do we do that? Because we favor liberty and we favor free markets and we favor morality. We oppose a system of death and suffering that both of these parties, both of these ideologies, conservatism and liberalism, have foisted on the American people and the people of the world. What do you think, Richard?
Well, I think that we have to realize that there is a serious problem here. There are Californians who are suffering from the oppression of heavy taxation, restrictive regulation, rent controls that make housing costs prohibitive, and trying to escape from their oppression. They're coming to South Carolina. South Carolina is one of the net receivers of people escaping from oppressive blue states in the United States. And I think that it is necessary for South Carolina to have a wall. And it's not just that they're going to come here and oh my gosh, raise the resale value of my house because they'll need a place to stay and fill additional jobs to create more amenities and conveniences and services for me because, oh no, more hands means more productive work that could be done. But there are negatives. And who are these people escaping? They're progressives and lefties who don't want to practice what they preach. And they're coming here. They're going to infect us. The plunderers changed South Carolina into California. So that's why we need a wall. But seriously, and I'm very much for making the Californians and the people from Massachusetts pay for that wall around South Carolina. But anyway, but seriously, the important point to realize is that the one that you are hammering away at. And that is within the United States, there are no immigration restrictions. Within the borders of the United States, there are no immigration restrictions, prohibitions, limits, checkpoints, or controls. People from California can freely choose to leave the state where they maybe have been born and raised and have their families and have had careers and professions and pick up and move to any of the other 49 states without permission, without approval, without papers, without proof of health care to reside in another state, okay? And do we worry about this? No. We view it as the natural right of people to choose where they find it most advantageous and profitable and enjoyable to take up residence to live, to work, to be with family, to retire. And we all benefit from this. And it also serves as checks and balances. Where do people come from? To states where economic opportunities are greater, where economic opportunities are less. Now, sometimes it's just profit and loss in the supplies and demands of markets in different parts of the country. But sometimes it is an escape from oppressive taxes and regulations to want a freer and better life in another part of the U.S. This is all part of this, and we take it for granted, and none of us worries about this. Oh, what if all the people of California decide that they want to move to Texas or South Carolina? Or what if all the people in tax burdensome Massachusetts decide to make their way to South Dakota? Nobody worries about that because we know it's not going to happen. So what we need to be taking a view the world the same way as we view the different states of the United States. Now, people might say, but wait a minute. People in the other parts of the world, they look different than us. So the United States is filled with people who look differently from each other, both ethnically and racially and in other biological ways. I mean, there's even differences between people based upon being a girl or a boy, at least until I'm prohibited from making that distinction anymore. But anyway, there are all these differences between people. And some states even have people like Jacob Hornberger, and they've survived, and they would survive if he moved to a different state. So all of this is irrelevant. If we think of the world as one community of people living, working, productively interacting for mutual benefit, it all becomes ludicrous. Again, this is a theme that we've talked about, and I've hammered away many times when we have talked about this subject, and I cannot fail to emphasize it again. The United States is a country based upon immigrants. Tens of millions of people have come to this country to escape political oppression, religious persecution, lack of economic opportunities because of the political and regulatory circumstances of their own nations. That's your ancestors, that's my ancestors, that's the ancestors of the vast majority of us, including some who might be watching or listening to this, who are themselves first-generation arrivals to the United States. More hands, more human capital in the head, more opportunities to intensify and extend the division of labor from which all of us benefit both in the United States and with trading with all the others who choose to live somewhere else in the world. We are a healthier country, a better country, a more productive country, and most importantly, a freer country, a country in which it says we judge you and think of you as an individual. It doesn't matter where you're from, or who your parents were, or what your religion is, or what dreams and hopes you have. We only ask a handful of things of you. Don't kill, don't steal, don't defraud. As long as you practice those simple rules that are pretty old and ancient, as I recall, in their premises, welcome to a free America and live free. What are causing the problems here? People use this as manipulative tools. The Republicans want to make it a political issue. Oh, too many are arriving. The Democrats think that if they let some in and give citizenship to, oh, it's genetically programmed that people from Latin American countries automatically vote Democrat. Of course, the Republicans believe that. They all have a racist theory of voter groups, right? Republicans think everybody who's Hispanic is a genetically programmed Democrat. And the Democrats believe that they're genetically programmed, and that's why they want them. The idea that someone, regardless of how they look, might think for themselves is beyond either one of them. So I think that we just need to rise above all this. These are political slogans and political manipulations for short-run political purposes with no understanding what freedom and the economics of a free society are all about.
Yeah, excellent points. I think your point about the fear of all Californians moving to South Carolina is so revealing, because that's really one of the things that conservatives, well, advocates of immigration controls generally, have this fear. They think in terms of catastrophic outcomes, that everybody from China would move to the United States, like, oh my God, we'd be filled with reds, communists and so forth. Life doesn't work that way. I mean, think, Richard, right now, you mentioned Californians moving into South Carolina. You can't deny that it's theoretically possible that tomorrow, every single person in the United States might decide to move to New York City. I mean, it's a possibility. And so shouldn't we prohibit people from doing that? Shouldn't we enact some controls here? Because if it happens tomorrow and everybody moves to New York City, it's too late to do anything about it. Think of the traffic jams and the housing crisis and the labor market, and think the whole rest of the United States will be empty. I mean, think what that means. So we've got to enact immigration controls to protect ourselves from this. Well, this is ludicrous. Not everyone wants to move to New York City. People like where they live. A lot of people do. And there's also laws of supply and demand. As everybody starts to move into New York City, things get a little bit more expensive in New York City. And somebody might say, I think I'll just stay here in my little town in Alabama, where my money goes a lot further than it's going to if I move to New York City. Well, the same principle applies internationally. People like where they live. People like living in China. It's really a rare person that's willing to leave his country and go to another country. It's hard. I mean, even touring in foreign countries is difficult. You travel to Europe. Not everybody speaks English, and it's difficult to get around sometimes if you don't know the language. The customs are different. I think most Americans that go on vacation, when they get back home, they say, it's nice the vacation was great, but it's nice to be back home again. And so imagine moving to a foreign country where you got to learn the new language, where you're going to get discriminated against, even, by anybody. You've got to get a job. So it's a rare person that just says, I'm going to leave my family, I'm going to leave my job, my customs, the laws that I'm accustomed to. I'm going to move to this country where I'm going to get abused. These are the kind of people that you want in a society. These are the energetics. These are the people that bring vitality, and they're starting business. They're entrepreneurs. They're bringing a jolt into economic activity that benefits everyone. They're like immigrants are like a free gift to a society, and yet people treat them like, oh God, they're such a burden and so forth. Well, this is just nonsense. It's actually a tremendous economic benefit. This is the type of thing that we should relish. If you look at the United States from, during the entire 19th century, this was a system of open immigration. But a lot of Americans don't realize that. You had a cursory tuberculosis inspection and senility inspection at Ellis Island. In the American Southwest, you didn't even have that. People were free to cross back and forth, and nobody worried about it. And nobody worried about citizenship. You see, this is where the Democrats go all off base. Biden, that he wants to make all the people here citizens. He wants to give them a path to citizenship. Well, of course, the Republicans, the conservatives have a point. This attracts new people now. They say, oh, wow, you can become an American citizen by going to the United States illegally. Well, duh. Immigration and citizenship are two completely different things. If you have a system of open borders, people are free to come here and work, tour, visit, whatever. Most of them are going to come and work. They want to make money. And a lot of them want to return back to their country with the money. The money goes a lot further in little village in Mexico than it does here. But they stay here because they're too concerned about having to get back in once they go back home. So the immigration control system has a perverse outcome. With open borders, they come here freely. They retain their Mexican citizenship. They work seasonally, they go back home, or they stay. It doesn't matter. If they want to apply for citizenship, we can make the citizenship requirements as stringent as we want. Doesn't matter. Right now there's more than 1 million Americans living in Mexico. Okay, they're not assimilating. Most of them aren't. They're not learning Spanish. They hang out among themselves. They eat hamburgers instead of Mexican food. They send their money back home. They keep their money in American banks. They cheer for American sports teams, and they retain their American citizenship. They live in Mexico. Who cares? Well, why does it matter? Should they be forced or pressured into becoming Mexican citizens because they're living there? Of course not. And the same applies here. I've got a friend who has been here in the United States for 30 years or so. She's a Japanese citizen. She wanted to retain her Japanese citizenship, and she did. Her kids became American citizens, but who cares if she's a Japanese? with open borders, you retain your citizenship unless you want to apply. So all this nonsense, oh, we're doing something beneficial by making them citizens, is just nonsense. The best thing you could ever do for people is just leave them free to cross borders and seeking a better way of life. Just leave them alone. The market will figure it out. You don't need to find jobs for them. At least the government doesn't. The private sector is very good at handling all those types of situations. Just open the borders like we have domestically and leave the government out of it.
Yeah, the thing is that let's think about some of the economic impacts of the arrival of immigrants. More people need more houses. More people need more food. More people need more of the amenities of everyday life. More people will, in a geographical area into which they've moved into, will need means of transportation, a car. Do you see in a free market a construction company saying, oh gosh, there's a greater demand for homes. We're going to have to produce and build homes and sell them at a profit. Damn it, why are all these people showing up? Or do you hear the grocery stores, the supermarkets saying, oh we have all these additional customers because they've moved into the area and they want to come to our store and buy more food. Oh, I guess we're going to have to open some new branches or expand the space in some of the existing ones. And I guess we're just going to have to earn more profits by making things available for those. Who are the only people who complain about more people? The government. Have you ever gone to the Bureau of Motor Vehicles to renew your license or to get some document or a sticker for your plate? And the people behind the counter say, we're really glad that there's more of you today. No, get your ticket and wait. Oh, I'm on break now. Okay. You know, I remember years ago when I was living in New York, I was in graduate school. I was in an apartment building. I was living in Queens next to a post office. So I go into the post office one day. It was around holiday time, and I'm waiting online. And this little woman, about 3 or 4 people ahead of me, comes to the counter. And, it's holiday time. People are sending, Christmas gifts to relatives, friends. And so she has this package which she wants to mail. Now, what did the person behind the counter do? He took a pen and he saw that it hadn't been properly taped completely, like it was a little tightly. He just tore it open and said, come back when you've wrapped it properly. Now, I've been to FedEx and UPS offices. I think many of us have. I mean, they don't say, come back when you've wrapped it properly. They offer you the service. You bring what you want to ship, and they'll wrap it and package it up for you. Maybe for a couple of extra dollars, depending on what you want to send packaged and wrapped up. But they'll do it for you. Why? Because in the market, customers are a benefit, something desirable. It gives more opportunities for work, for investment, for profits, for market share. But for the government, you're a pest. More people are pests. I have to do something for you. And I'm just dependent upon my government salary. I can do the best I can. Do I make a profit out of it? No. I'm still a public servant, a civil servant in the Department of Motor Vehicles, in this department, in that department. Try dealing with the IRS. Oh, we're so happy you're here. And by the way, did I tell you you're getting a refund? No, that's not how they view you when you go see the IRS. Now, we can just go down the list of everything. I can tell stories about how I had this in the Soviet Union, the penultimate bureaucracy. But anyway, but with government, you're a pest and a nuisance. You're a cost. You have no benefit. You've shown up and you want them to do things. In a free market, more people needing more goods, offering more hands to do the work to partly produce that which they want themselves, is viewed as a gain, a benefit, an advantage to the others in the society. So if we have open immigration in an environment of free markets, even relatively free markets, we can't have a totally free market tomorrow, relatively free markets, you will see that people find their niches for employment, places to live, opportunities to immerse themselves in the society, and in the marketplace, all those who now have to supply the things they want will view them as a benefit and not a cost. And to be able to offer the benefits of that, some of those same people will have to be employed to provide the goods and services that are now in greater demand. It's a win-win situation.
Yeah, Richard, those are great points about the win-win situation and about how the government considers it a great burden when it gets too many customers and it treats people accordingly. But let me follow up on your win-win situation. If you look at the farmers of America, a lot of them were going broke because of immigration controls in the last few years. The people producing strawberries and other fruits and so forth, they couldn't get enough people to get in there and harvest the crop. So the crops were just going rotten while there's countless people at the border saying, hey, let us in so we can go and pick those crops. And you certainly didn't see advocates of immigration controls going and helping those farmers. They're always, these people always say how caring and compassionate they are, but you certainly didn't go and see them helping those farmers pick their crops. Now, and we also hear sometimes that, immigrants come and steal jobs from Americans, but what happens in the farm industry is a perfect example of this win-win situation you're talking about. That here you have workers that are there, let's say they're Americans working on the farm, and oftentimes they are displaced by immigrants that they come in, they don't know English very well, they don't dress very nicely, they can't get better jobs. The best job they can get is harvesting these crops, and they're very happy to get those crops because they're making a lot more money than they were in the countries from where they came. All right, so they put those people out of work. Freudian slip there. So what happens then, you mentioned Walmart, that you've got these new customers coming into Walmart to buy things. Well, that means demand's going up for those things. They need to hire new salespeople or new stock people. Who do they hire? The people who were displaced from the farms, the ones who speak English, have at least a high school education, know how to deal with customers, and so those people end up with higher paying jobs than they were down on the farm. So again, it's a win-win situation. The free market, as you pointed out, is a win-win for everybody.
Yes, there's a famous line from Adam Smith's book, The Wealth of Nations, called "The division of labor is limited by the extent of the market." In other words, how far can we take the division of labor for intensifying production, extending production? It's how many people exist and have hands to work with who both want things as a consumer but can do things as a producer. So by having a larger population, more people coming into the country, we in fact have the opportunity to take care of an extended and intensified division of labor of more work and not less work. And by hands being able to do one kind of work, as you were just saying, it frees up hands that otherwise would not have been available. For example, if I can just use a variation of that, at the beginning of the 20th century, a little over a century ago or so, it was estimated that about 50%, at least 40% of the workforce of the United States was connected either directly or indirectly in agriculture. Today, less than 3% of the US workforce is involved with agriculture, directly or indirectly. And we not only feed ourselves, but it's famous, we export food to many other places of the world. And that's because machines replaced hands. And all those hands that were replaced by the machines, did they face unemployment? Did the machines take away their jobs? That's how the rhetoric often is. But in fact, what it did, it freed up hands that previously was tied down on the farm to have the opportunity to be hired to do other things that previously we weren't wealthy enough in terms of a labor force to be able to afford. So when new immigrants come in, and often they are in terms of skills at the lower end of the ladder, they are able to fill niches that others have had to do, but are slowly themselves moving up the ladder to do more productive and valued things, so that in fact more work is done, not less. More people can be employed, not less. The standard of living does not fall, it rises. Labor and work to be done is complementary, not just some narrow substitute that if Joe gets the job, Bill loses the job. No, by Joe being able to do a certain type of job that previously Bill had to do, that frees Bill up to do other things that previously could not be done before. And we're all gaining. So the immigration is a positive sum game for the United States. It's not a negative sum game. particularly if we emphasize, unlike a lot of the rhetoric, oh, we only want in, college graduates or people with advanced degrees or people who could show up with a bank account of $5 million who'll say they'll invest in a business. It's great to have, high-skilled people. But the fact is the division of labor is a wide spectrum of people that we need for many talents, skills, and unskills to do various niches that make all of us better and give people opportunities that otherwise they couldn't have in their home country.
Okay, well, we spent a lot of time on the utilitarian case, and just a few minutes we have left. I think it's important that we also emphasize the moral case for open borders. One is with respect to liberty. I mean, with immigration controls come a police state, an immigration police state, and that's what we have down on the border. I lived in this police state. You've got domestic passport checks where people on the highways, traveling highways that have never gone to Mexico, are required to stop and show their passports and answer questions. I mean, this is what goes on in totalitarian countries. You have warrantless searches of farms and ranches along the border, even extending out 100 miles from the border sometimes. You've got Greyhound bus searches. I mean, the list goes on and on of these totalitarian police state measures. But finally, also, there's life involved here. I mean, there's people dying from immigration controls. I recall just about a year ago that picture of that father and his little daughter, toddler, that had crossed the Rio Grande and drowned, and their bodies were there on the shores, and people dying, crossing lonely deserts. Just a few days ago, there was a wreck where some illegal immigrants were in a truck that were being illegally transported, no doubt trying to evade the police. I mean, on and on. It's just a deadly system that doesn't have to exist, because with open borders, free markets comes life, where people cross borders like human beings, where people are treated like human beings. So not only is it win-win in a utilitarian sense, freedom and free markets is a win-win in terms of morality and liberty as well.
If I could just add a very brief postscript to what you just said. The President of the United States, Joe Biden, announced that he's appointing Kamala Harris, the Vice President, to deal with the immigration issues on the southern border, and that she's going to be into consultations with governments such as Guatemala and Honduras, Mexico. And what is this basically doing? The U.S. government is going to strong-arm these governments, threats, intimidations, possible withholding of coronavirus vaccines from Mexico, unless these governments hinder, regulate, control, and restrict the movements and the fulfillment of the dreams of their own people who don't want to live where they are and take an opportunity in another place, which in this case includes often the United States.
Okay, on that note, we'll wrap it up. Richard, enjoyed the conversation. Thank you all for tuning in. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our FFF Daily, subscribe to our monthly journal, Future of Freedom. And if you like the work we're doing, we hope you'll support us through voluntary donations. Richard, until next week.
Until next time, bye-bye.